Welcome back to the second episode of the On the Grid podcast. I have an amazing guest with me today. I have Joran, so if you don't mind, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. Like you said, I'm Joran. I am a graphic designer living in Belgium. And yeah, I don't think if you need to know more about me.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a really interesting podcast because you've done so many different things. I've known you for coming up to about 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, I think 4 or 5 even, maybe.
Oh, yeah, geez, yeah, probably is, which is crazy to think about. But it would be great to have just some more insight and for the audience to understand a bit more about you, your experiences in the world of esports and out.
Yeah, I think the way I kind of got started in design is basically when I was 12 years old. I had a YouTube channel, so I kind of did the basic stuff of like looking up how to make your own YouTube banners. But then simultaneously, I was also going on like a summer camp for game design, which sounds a lot more impressive than it actually was because it was kind of the first year that they did that summer camp, and it turned out that the camp was quite shit basically. Like time management was so non-existent that we just only did like half of the things we were supposed to learn in that camp. But then, yeah, after that camp, I wanted to kind of make my own game, obviously. And one of the things that we really didn't go in depth with was just like the creation of assets of like the character and other visual things. So I looked up tutorials and then eventually I kind of got into like speed arts for YouTube banners and other things. And yeah, that's how I kind of got into, first of all, like 3D stuff and 3D YouTube banners. And then later on the line, I got into 2D, and that's kind of how I got into esports in general. And I kind of joined SoaR off the back of it, I think 5 or 6 years ago now. Eventually left SoaR for the first time and then got into Red Reserve. And that's kind of how I got to know you as well, right?
Yeah, got to know you through Red. So if we just rewind a second, you went to do game design. So that, how old were you when you did that?
Yeah, right around the age of 12. It was
12.
it wasn't really like I wanted to do it. It's basically like each year my parents came to me like, Joran, are you gonna do like a summer camp this year? And each year I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And then I saw like game design and I was like into getting into Call of Duty and other games like that. I was like, I'm gonna try that one just to yeah, make my parents be quiet for a few years, hopefully. And it was interesting as well, but like yeah, the camp itself turned out to be a bit of a farce, basically.
Hmm. So would you say that that camp got you into design, or was it more like you had interest in it and that's why you ended up going to this camp?
um, I would say it kind of got me into design. Like I said before, like I wanted to kind of make my own game afterwards, and I didn't really know how to make the all the visual stuff. And I kind of got into that as well. I think in the combination with the YouTube banners. But yeah, I think because of the quality of the game camp, that turned out not to be like a full passion of mine. But then because of the YouTube stuff that I did simultaneously, I think that's how I kind of gravitated more towards making YouTube banners at the end.
Okay, that's really cool. So you said you started off with 3D design to begin with. I'm assuming
Mhm.
that's because of the game design element. But that's a really interesting approach to start with 3D and then go to 2D and not vice versa. So tell me about that
I mean, I
transition.
wouldn't really say it was because of the game design trend. It was more so because that was kind of the trend on YouTube in general. I think
Okay.
that was kind of what everyone was doing. Um, because yeah, YouTube was still very, very small. YouTube design was very, very small. And then I kind of grew with that scene over the years, and then people kind of got tired from 3D, and then started to go towards 2D, and that's how I evolved more towards 2D, and that turned out to be like the thing that I love the most, and I think I can be the most creative in 2D. But it's not like the game design thing. It's more like I'm just gonna follow trends for a while and ride that wave, basically.
Okay, so trends got you to where you are, basically. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your 2D design and following the trends on YouTube, when did you sort of like make that transition into more 2D and get more into esports design?
Um, I think right around the age of like 15. So when I was doing 3D design for like 3 years. Yeah, like I said, like the trends were moving more and more towards like 2D stuff. Um, but it's also kind of around that time that I kind of made like an attitude switch. Because like I said, like at first I was just following the trends. I think that was kind of what everyone was doing, right? It's like, oh, this 3D style is super cool. Everyone does the same until like there's that one person who does like something really original. People love that. Everyone moves towards that. And then in 2D, I kind of, yeah, got into it, and it's kind of an outlet for me. I think for me at least, I can be so much more creative in 2D. And then I think simultaneously, like YouTube kind of grew more and more towards like professionalism, towards sponsorships as well. And then that whole 3D style that was going around in the community just, yeah, wasn't cutting it anymore. I think people needed that thing that was kind of refreshing, but also professional in a way. So it's like throughout kind of my journey, I kind of evolved with the scene. But then at a certain point in time, I think, okay, this is it for me, and I'm gonna focus on this.
Hmm. So why did you have this attitude switch then? So would you say that following trends, knowing what you know now, is not a good idea for someone starting out, or would you say that like following trends is a good way of getting a good mix of things? Like, what would be your advice to someone who's maybe starting out now?
I think following trends is good. Um, I think especially like when you start off. I think something that I did when I first got into it is really like copying designs, and I think everyone is kind of doing the same, but not like copying a design and then selling it, but like copying a design because you kind of have that marker of, okay, this is a very high quality thing. I want to recreate it, learn the kind of techniques, and like grow that way. So I think following the trends is very good because like they're trends for a reason as well. Um, and like if you want to earn money, following the trends will get you further. But I think simultaneously, like if I look at myself compared to other people in the industry, I don't really see myself as like the most talented designer. I don't think I have the highest skill ceiling or like the highest skill sets. I think there are quite a lot of other things that set me apart from other people, but just looking at skills, I don't rate myself that highly compared to other people. And I think, yeah, the reason why I made that attitude switch from like, okay, I'm just gonna follow trends to I'm gonna be very, very original was like at the time I still wanted to join like all the big teams, right? And yeah, if you think of yourself like, hey, I can do the same thing that everyone else does, but people are better at me at doing that thing. So I need to find another way to join these big teams. And for me, that was really that, okay, I'm going to do something no one else does. So if the ask is there from like a big team, I'm the guy to pick up. And that's kind of why I made that mentality shift.
That's a really interesting philosophy you have. I think you were being a little bit too self-deprecating. Like, I wouldn't.
I mean, I still feel like I'm a good designer, right? I have like a high skill set, but I think there are so many people, and especially like in the gaming community, it's full of so many amazing, talented people that I think like, yeah, I'm beat for beat, word for word, like not the highest skilled designer. I think there are more people out there that can do like the same thing as me if they focus on it. Um, but also like that's not what I kind of want to do. I don't want to do the same thing always. So
Mhm.
I think that's also one of the reasons why I may not be like the highest skilled guy, but I may be like one of the people with like the most broad skill set, right? Because I have done so many different things.
Okay, cool. So when you say you have like a broad skill set, now that you've like tried and tested all these different trends, would you go as far to say that you prefer being a generalist, or do you think that specializing is advantageous?
It kind of depends on like person from person, right? I think for me personally, I'm a very competitive person, and I hate, but I also love being bad at something. I hate being bad at something because, yeah, obviously I want to be great at something, but I also love it because it provides me with new challenges, with new opportunities to learn and grow. Um, so yeah, I would say for me personally, I would, especially right now because I'm still super young, super early in my career. I want to be able to just try and test so many different things, be a generalist, and then maybe further down the line, when like I have built up all these experiences, I might say, okay, I've tried everything. I like this the most. I think I'm the best at this. I'm gonna go that way. But right now, I don't want to define like my skill sets or like my career or who I am. I think being general, for me at least, um, yeah, is where I kind of gain the most energy and the most motivation. I think for other people might find the complete opposite to be true, right? So I feel like, yeah, it's kind of a gray thing. It's not a black and white thing. It's not like being generalist is the best for everything. I think it's the best for me, but yeah, it might be different for you as well.
I mean, yeah, I'm very different. I prefer to specialize in something or to work really hard at a skill set that I feel like is my strongest and also something that I really enjoy doing. So for that, for me, it's branding and brand identity. But you said that like you hate being bad at something, but love, I guess, the process of improving. Do you have a process about doing that? Like, do you go to research first? Do you look at inspiration? Like, what is kind of your process of improvement?
Yeah, my process of improvement is basically I browse Dribble, Pinterest, Behance for hours on end. Basically, I have like maps on my computer just with images that I will probably never touch,
Mm-hmm.
but it always kind of provides me with ideas of, okay, maybe I can try this, or maybe this can be an idea of like something that I can really get into. And then I think, yeah, it's basically trying. I mean, I got back into 3D, I think, a year ago now. And that was just by looking up like a tutorial and just trying something, right? Um, it's not that I have like a set process. It's whatever I feel like, basically.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. So just do a lot of research. And would you say that you spend more time researching or more time trialing erroring, if that's a thing?
Um, it depends from like project to project or like thing I want to learn. I think some things that you want to learn require more research. Um, and like it also kind of depends how in depth you want to go into something. Sometimes you do the research part first, and then you feel like, okay, I kind of grasp the idea, but it's not something that I really see myself doing for an extended period of time, and then it kind of stops there. But then sometimes once you've done that research, you really go into it and you start loving it and you invest more time into that, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's not really something I can answer because it's just different every time.
That's fair. That's fair. And this is kind of like segueing a little bit off. So going back to your camp that you did. Besides that, have you had any, I guess, classical training when it comes to design, whether it be at school, at college, university?
Yes and no. I went to university for design, but that was like a period in my life where I was very ill.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, like I did the first year of that course over 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
because I always got ill, and then I had to like do the same classes like the next year. Um, so I have had like a basic, yeah, training. I did like the first year, like I said, but it kind of stopped there because, yeah, I already kind of had that base, and the first year of the course is very basic. So going into school, I knew that, okay, the first year is going to be hell because it's going to be boring as hell. It's going to be things that I already know. Um, but like these things are needed for people who hadn't or like didn't have the experience that I had, right? So I knew going in like, okay, it's just gonna be a year. I'm gonna do that. But then because I got ill, yeah, it turned out to be, oh, it's not just a year, it's 3 years of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that second and especially that third year, I just lost all motivation because I was also working in esports simultaneously, right? So I kind of had like a little bit of professional like experience build up,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it kind of got to a point where I sat with my parents and I said like, hey, I hate going to school. I don't find any motivation. If anything, like I go to school just to be bored, sleep, and then be at home and then just learn new things on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I want to try and go to work. um, so yeah, that's kind of how I started looking for jobs. But like, yeah, to answer your question, I did have a little bit of formal training, but it's also simultaneously like I didn't really have a lot of training because I only got to the level where it was just basic stuff.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that as well.
Well,
Would you want to go back to school, or is that something that is past now and you wouldn't want to go back?
I think I'm well past that. I think, um, yeah, I'm not gonna say that school isn't beneficial for anyone or that people should just skip design school.
Hmm.
I think for a lot of people it's super beneficial. I think for me personally, the way I see my own career progress, I don't think it's needed. Yeah, if I just look back, I've been working full time as a designer for like 2 years now. Um, I've learned so much since starting that full time job
Hmm.
about things that before I started working, I thought it's super boring. I'm never gonna do that. While now, like that whole thing is kind of starting to become kind of my strong suit and kind of my passion. I think, yeah, marketing is one such thing. Before that, I just thought like, yeah, I'm never gonna do that. I'm just gonna make super cool shit.
Hmm.
While right now, my whole mindset and my outlook on design is completely changed, and I want to make obviously I want to make cool shit, but I want to make cool shit that works for a company, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. And we'll touch on that a little bit in a second. I just got to read out this ad and we'll
Yep.
get right back into it. Are you a creative that spends long hours at your desk sketching and conceiving of new ideas? Do you maybe like to play some video games in your downtime, or maybe even enjoy some exercise as your creative escape as part of a healthy lifestyle? If any of these are true for you, then you'll more than likely feel like the fuel tank is empty and that sometimes you just need some more energy to be on top of your game. Fortunately, the partners of the podcast over at XGamer can help you out. The energy drink is filled with vitamins and minerals with zero added sugar and a low calorie intake, meaning for a boost in energy, focus, and stamina, meaning you can have peak creativity for longer. Unlike traditional sugar filled energy drinks, X Gamer offers no crash experience. Simply add 1 scoop to water, shake, and you're away. X Gamer is also vegan suitable and offers other products which you can find on their website. Get a 10% discount site wide using the code GRID at checkout over at xgamer.com. That's code GRID, GRID, all in capitals, at x-gamer.com. Welcome back. We're just going to hop right back into it. So, when you were talking about your career, do you mind if we just dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. Ask away.
So, you started off with esports and design with esports alongside school. Was that with SoaR? Was that where you were at?
Yeah, I think SoaR was kind of my first big team that I joined. But I would say like my first very right, pretty professional experience was Red Reserve. I think, yeah, SoaR at the time, like the SoaR of like 4 or 5 years ago, is not the SoaR that it is today, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
the community from like 4 or 5 years ago isn't the community of today. I think everything has grown so much exponentially and become so much more professional. Um, but yeah, at the time I was in SoaR right before I went to uni. But then my parents basically gave me the ultimatum of, okay, yeah, you need to start earning a bit of money. Either you're gonna do it in your design, or you're gonna just like look for a job in the weekends. So yeah, at the time I had to leave SoaR because SoaR at the time didn't compensate. They didn't need to.
Okay.
They do now. But yeah, I kind of looked for like a team that compensated, and I found like a very very small organization that paid me like I think it was like €100 a month, which right now is nothing at all basically.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time that was quite a lot, and then that turned out to be like not the best experience for me, obviously, because I was still very passionate about SoaR. But then I got approached by Red Reserve, and yeah, they gave me an offer. They would compensate me. So that's kind of how I got into Red. And then, yeah, I kind of was in Red for, I think, 2 years or something like that. So I think Red was kind of the period where the community was evolving as well, right? So I think my experience in SoaR was just right before that growth was, yeah, going.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, yeah, SoaR was kind of a break that I got, but then most of my experience that I say was very valuable at the time was Red Reserve.
So Red is kind of where things started to take off into a more professional environment for you.
Yeah,
So who approached you from Red?
I think at the time it was Juan, who was lead designer. It was just before Red was merging with Orbit, and he approached me and said, "Yeah, this is gonna happen. Do you want to be part of it? This is basically how we are gonna compensate you," and that's how we got going.
Okay, that's cool. And we won't talk too much about Red just because
It
it's
turned into
Red.
a shit show.
Yeah, I mean, that's like an hour long by itself. So,
Yeah,
if you
it's
don't
true.
mind, we'll segue right back to after Red. So, unfortunately, you had no job within esports right at that time, right?
No, I think yeah. If you wanted to jump in esports at the time, yeah, you either had to go to NA, which wasn't really an option,
Hmm.
and then I think yeah, the Berlin organizations like G2, like a Rogue, I think as well, they weren't hiring. Team Liquid in the Netherlands as well. There were a few options in the UK, but then it was kind of during that time that Brexit was really a thing, and there was a lot of uncertainty. So being from Belgium, even if I wanted to kind of relocate, there was so much uncertainty about that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think I had talks with one org, but that really, yeah, bounced rather quickly because of it. So yeah, no, I didn't have anything in esports.
Okay, and how long was it then until you managed to find something again with SoaR?
I think, yeah, I was always kind of staying active part time in esports. I designed for Riddle, for Four Elements, so a couple of smaller organizations.
Hmm.
And then now I think since half a year I'm back with SoaR again.
Yeah, that's awesome. And before we go on to like your professional experience, do you mind just running down how you managed to land your job with SoaR and what your roles and responsibilities are with them?
Yeah, I think I've always kind of stayed a little bit in contact with people from SoaR. And then, yeah, I've always kind of been really passionate about SoaR because it was kind of the first big team that I was in. So it's kind of that nostalgia vibes. Um, and then, yeah, when I did some practice projects, I did them for SoaR because SoaR gets quite a lot of attention and quite a lot of likes and retweets. So
You got that clout, huh?
it was a win-win situation for me. But that's how I kind of got into contact again with Croods, and then we got talking, and eventually I ended up joining again. And then what I'm doing right now is kind of senior designer, or basically like their only, well, not their only designer. They're all other people working, but like I'm working basically behind the scenes and more so on like presentations to approach potential sponsors, and I'm yeah, that's basically most of the things that I'm doing.
Hmm.
There's also work that's going out on like the main channels and then member channels as well. But I think a lot of the things that I'm doing is behind the scenes, is more so, um, yeah, with all the kind of marketing experiences that I have is helping there as well, right?
Yeah, so you're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes and like sponsorship decks and stuff isn't really just making things look good. And that's something that you talked about earlier. So, how would you say that your outlook, mindset, and I guess philosophies have changed from just making things look good to making things work? And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think my mindset has changed quite a lot. Yeah, basically, I talked about like that I wanted to look for a job, and then I quickly kind of found a position in a software company, which is also like a very growing and a very young industry. So it's a bit comparable to esports in a way, but I think that industry is just a bit further ahead. Um, but yeah, when I got into that job, I was really going into it with the mindset of, yeah, I've got a lot of experiences, just gonna make super cool stuff. And I got my ass handed to me quite away, right away, basically. And I think over the kind of 2 years that I've been doing that job, I've really been learning about, okay, how nice your visual looks doesn't matter to a company if it doesn't produce clicks, if it doesn't produce like conversions on a website, people putting in their emails.
Hmm.
Those are the things that are actually very important. Yeah, obviously you want to make something that's beautiful, but yeah, at the end of the day, these clicks and these impressions and stuff are, yeah, more important. And it's these kind of things that really drive the business. It's really, yeah, how beautiful your graphic looks per se isn't gonna bring in money. It's how beautiful it looks and how many clicks it brings in. That's what ultimately is gonna lead to the
Hmm.
business making money. And I think having that realization and being involved with the process in that, not just as a designer but also as a marketeer, has helped me a lot, because the company has always kind of pushed me to be more than just a designer. It's always like, okay, not many people are clicking. What can we do outside of design? Um, we have this campaign that's just not really resonating. Can we fix it by design? But also, what other things can you do? We want to make new content. Joran, do you have any ideas? That kind of stuff. So it's always been like, and being involved with more than just design has really expanded my outlook and has gotten me into marketing as well. And I
That's
think,
awesome.
yeah, and I think that's something that really sets me apart from other people, especially in the gaming scene, because the gaming scene, like I said, it's a very similar industry, but also it's a very, very young industry with young people getting into it. So it's also just an industry where there still is a lot of professionalism that needs to grow into the scene, right? So when you first get started, you join maybe like a team that's created by like 18-year-olds who don't necessarily have the right experience, who don't really know how to close big sponsorships. So you don't really necessarily have the marketing experiences and that kind of experience. So I think that's something that I think more and more clans are starting to understand, more and more teams are starting to understand. So it's something that, yeah, with time will grow as well. But right now, I think, yeah, I'm one of the kind of early adopters of that kind of way of thinking. And I think that's something that hopefully I can teach to more people and get that realization in there. Because I think not only in the gaming scene, but if you're looking to take away like design into like a real, not, I mean, I'm saying real, but it's not, into like a job in another industry, right?
Hmm.
I think having that mindset will help you along the way as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to dive into it, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to backtrack
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit. So you said that your mindset has really changed because they ask you to get more involved with the marketing side of things outside of design, and that if things don't look, don't produce the clicks, it doesn't really matter how they look. So would you go as far as to say that um, the aesthetics come secondary to function? Would you go as far as to say that?
Um, for me personally, yes, in a way. Um,
Same.
it's a fine balance as well, because as a designer, you want to make something that's beautiful. If you don't think it's beautiful, you're never gonna produce the work that, yeah, is best. And that's also gonna kind of affect like the function as well. So it's a mix, but I think, yeah, for a business, it's kind of function over how fancy it looks.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I think that's something that, like you said, it's such a young industry that esports is, can take a lot to learn from. I think that makes sense. It's
Mm-hmm.
because like something that I've noticed a lot and something that I really did is that I was, I think, 14 or 15 when I got into design. And something that I would do is I'd download Photoshop, definitely cracked, and I'd just try and make things look good, right? Or as good as I could
Mm-hmm.
when I was that young. But it was just like, as I've learned and sort of got more into design and the theory of things, it's kind of not how things are. And I don't know if you agree, but something that I see a lot with even like semi-professional, even some professional organizations, is that a lot of the content that's designed is very much like make things look good, follow trends. Would you say that
Mm-hmm.
that's probably not the right way going about it?
I think in the gaming scene, it is the way to go, because, yeah, they're gaming trends for a reason, right? I think especially because the gaming scene is heavily like business to consumer related. It's like organization to fans. Yeah, if a certain style is resonating with fans, then obviously you want to do that, and that kind of style is going for the clicks, or like
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna generate the clicks. So I think, yeah, in the gaming scene, it's following the trends is often quite good, But yeah, you always kind of run the risk of, okay, these are 5 graphics. We've deleted the logo. Guess which org the graphics are all from, and then you're just
Mm-hmm.
gonna interchange logos. But I feel like, to your point, I think a lot of the kind of S tier organizations, they kind of all have their own thing. They're all their own kind of branding.
Mm-hmm.
And then the A tier organizations, they're kind of the ones that are starting, or like all are kind of looking the same. And then you have like all the B tier orgs, like B tier between brackets, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
um, that, yeah, all kind of follow the trends, right? I think you always have the organizations or people who set the trends, and then it's natural that more and more people will follow the trends because, yeah, they set the trends, but they work. So
Mm-hmm.
if something works, you do it.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good way of putting it, is that if something works, why would you do anything different? But
Mm.
how do you think that I guess affects brand image and I guess brand longevity? So if we take someone like your 100 Thieves, your Optic Gamings, people who have a very distinct identity and have had the same thing going for a couple years now and it's worked, do you think that it would be beneficial for those B tier teams that you mentioned to do the same thing, like find something that works? Or would you say that following the trends will get them to that tier? Like, what do you reckon would work best from a marketing point of view?
I think if you want to break into like that A or S tier, you have to find something that sets you apart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think, yeah, 100 Thieves with like their very clean graphics, their aesthetically pleasing graphics, they stand out. You know, if you look at their graphics, that's 100 Thieves. If you look, for example, at an Optic, you look at their graphics and you see, okay, that's an Optic graphic. So if you look at all the top tier organizations, they all have like that little something that you just look at those graphics and you see, okay, that's that clan. Um, so I think, yeah, if you have the right structure, if you have the professionalism in your organization, I think, yeah, striving towards finding that something that sets you apart, so people look at a graphic and say, that's that org's graphics. I think that's the way to go. But yeah, the reality in esports is I don't think there are a super big amount of like organizations that have the right structure, that have the right professionalism and the know-how to really, yeah, push towards that A or S tier. So yeah, it's a it's a fine balance in a way. I think with time you'll see more and more organizations really find their thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I'm trying to do with SoaR because I feel like SoaR has that capability to be one of like the biggest orgs.
Definitely.
So I feel like on branding, that's something that I want to accomplish and that I'm trying to do. Um, yeah, obviously, it's always better to be unique, in my opinion, rather than just being one of a thousand. But yeah, maybe not for everyone, it's gonna be the same, right?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I really appreciate all your insights, and I can't wait to see what you do with SoaR and how you, I guess, brand them to be this S tier organization, which we all know they are and could be. So,
Mhm.
Joran, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate
Thank you
it.
for having me.